I am in San Francisco, California. I saw a couple people from the Bay Area, a couple people local San Francisco. So good to see you there. And I also see a lot of people from around the world. So welcome. But before we get into it, I'm seeing on the chat that there's a little bit of voice interference. Can I just get a check from others? Is the sound okay? So Karen says sound is okay. Okay, so it seems like it's for the most part good. For some, not great. We'll do our best to make adjustments, but I think we'll go ahead and move forward with the sound that we've got. So um, so thank you all for joining. I know it's an incredibly unusual time for everybody. A lot of disruption in both personal as well as in professional lives. One of our aims in putting this together so quickly was to try to make that adjustment for you a little bit easier, and really by focusing on some available resources that you have available to you right now, things that we as National Geographic Learning can provide, or if we've already provided them to you, maybe using some of those resources in a way that's a little bit different, specifically for the online classroom environment. So before getting into it, I'd like to learn a little bit about you. I'd like to take a poll, and this poll is going to be about your comfort level with teaching online. I know we're a pretty big group. Looks like we're about 160, which is fantastic. And I know within that group, there's a lot of experience. Probably some of you are very comfortable teaching online. You just want to know what resources are available. Maybe others of you feel completely uncomfortable with teaching online. Maybe you haven't taught a class online and this is your first time. So what I'd like to do is just to kind of get a sense of where you're at. Joy, if you could post that poll for everybody. And if you could see, you'll see a poll pop up onto the screen in just a moment. And if you could just respond where you are in this, we can get a good sense of us as a group and where we are in terms of teaching online. For 30 seconds, majority of people here. Excellent. Okay, let's see if we can end the poll, broadcast the results. This will be good. Okay, so it looks like interesting. So there's a lot of you who have never taught online. In fact, 40%, which is a lot. So that's great. We'll take this journey together. It looks like some of you, many of you, are somewhat comfortable, and a few of you are very comfortable teaching and even comfortable with some of the resources. So let's do this. As we move forward, I'm going to move kind of slowly through some of these tools so that we can get a sense of how to apply those tools. The other thing that I'd like to do is to keep this chat line open. And for those of you who are pretty experienced, with teaching, I'd like to, I'd love for you to share that experience if there's anything that comes to mind as we're walking through some of the materials, to post those for the rest of us to see. I think we'll get a lot of benefit. So a couple other things, just in terms of housekeeping. This is as yes. This is live. I'm doing this live, and I'm going to be toggling between different applications. And so sometimes things might seem a little bit disjointed, or sometimes it might not go as smoothly as we would have thought. But you know what? That's the online learning environment, isn't it? I think that's one of the things that we're all contending with now, as we're shifting from something very familiar in the classroom environment to something that's online and different. Things happen, and you know what? We're going to do our best to roll with it. I like this image actually of the scene. If you can all see this opening screen. It's of a campsite. I don't know if any of you like camping, but I love camping. It's something that I really enjoy doing, particularly in the summertime with my family. But one of the things about camping is that it's always a little bit uncomfortable, as much as I enjoy it. And the other thing that often happens is you have to make do. You don't always have exactly what you need at the moment that you need it, but you have to make do with the resources that are available so that you can make best use of those tools. So that's really what today is about: is to make use of those tools that are available. Maybe they're not always fit exactly for that purpose, but making them work for that purpose is definitely an aim. So let's do this. I am going to share my screen with you. Move to PowerPoint. There we go. And so I'd like to start with this notion. Again, I think for those of you who are very familiar with online learning, this is a familiar topic, of synchronous versus asynchronous learning. And the two kind of really define the type of learning that happens online. And synchronous is the kind of learning that happens really at the same time, as the name suggests. So what we're doing right now is synchronous. It's live. I'm here, you're there as a group, and we have interaction that's dynamic. It's unpredictable. It's very much built around the moment. That's the kind of learning that we're going to focus on today, and look at those tools in the context of a synchronous classroom environment, as opposed to an asynchronous environment, which is what a lot of online schools and a lot of programs do. They might record a lecture, they might post that lecture, and then have students access that lecture at different times. And students will go to that when it's convenient to them. They might respond to different activities and not occurring at the same time, but really at their own time. But today, we're really going to focus on that synchronous learning environment, which is the live classroom environment. It's very much built around the student, meant to be student-centered, and it's meant to be responsive and communicative. So the other thing I want to point out is, in talking about the online learning experience, there's a lot to talk about. And one of them is the pedagogy associated with that. And that's how do I best serve an online classroom? What are some of the best teaching techniques? What's good pedagogy in terms of delivering an effective online class? And then there's the other side, which is, what are the tools? what can I actually use to deliver that class? And today, what we're going to focus on are the tools and the resources. But I want to point out that we at National Geographic Learning, we do have training and professional development to focus on that side of the pedagogical side of teaching an online class. And in fact, we have 3 webinars that are upcoming. Each one is focused on some aspect of that pedagogy. So the first one is engaging students in meaningful learning activities. That, I believe, is tomorrow. So if you want to register for that, register soon. We have 2 professors from George Mason University who are going to be presenting on this. The second webinar is going to be making your screen come alive, and the third one is building a supportive learning environment. And these, again, are going to be very much built around teacher training, professional development, and again, those aspects of pedagogy. Enjoy. If you can send that link actually to everybody in the chat box, we'll also send it to you at the end of the webinar as well, so it's easy to register. Today, however, we're going to focus on tools and resources, just as I was talking about before. So it's kind of those nuts and bolts, those things that you can take right now and apply to your classroom. And we're going to focus on five key resources. And here I've listed them for you. One of them is the classroom presentation tool. You know what? That's actually probably the most important, probably the most useful tool that you'll have that we'll talk about today. And we have a number of our materials that line up with the classroom presentation. The second thing that we'll focus on is myELT, the online workbook, which, again, if you've been using National Geographic Learning materials, you may have already been using the online workbook. But again, we're going to put it in a slightly different context today, and that's the context of the synchronous classroom. The third thing we'll talk about, this is one we're really excited about, is the Pathways Canvas shell. Again, this is one we're going to show you a little bit, so you get a sense of what's available to you to use right now. The fourth thing is the companion sites, the teacher and student companion sites, and then finally the ebook. I want to point out before we get into this is all of these resources we're going to make available to you, or already have made available to you, at no additional cost. These are sources that you contact your main rep here in the U.S. and Canada, and they will provide you with all of these resources to help facilitate your online classroom environment. So that's the plan. We're going to take a look at these each of these products, but I'd like to put it in the context of a question. It's probably one of the questions you might have been asking yourself when you first sort of were presented with this idea of, okay, I'm teaching, face-to-face this week, and then next week I have to put all of my classes online. And so the first question that we've been getting is, where can I get a digital version of the student book so I can continue the class? The answer to this question is, first and foremost, is the classroom presentation tool. If you don't already have one, we'll get you one, but this is an essential tool to help project a digital version of the book. Actually, so much more, and we'll take a look at it and just how much more it is, and you'll be able to see just how much more you can do with this presentation tool in the classroom. And then the second best way is, of course, just having an ebook. Ebooks are exactly that. We can provide you with an ebook, and you could simply project that onto your screen. So with that said, I'm going to toggle now to the classroom presentation tool. Just a moment. There we go. Okay. Saka, I'm going to rely on you for confirmation. Can everybody see my screen?
And people are saying yes.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you. And there we go. I made my first toggle, and it was a success. I'm really happy. So what we're looking at here is the classroom presentation tool for our series Pathways, Reading and Writing Level 1. All of our classroom presentation tools look like this, where once you plug it in, it is a USB. Once you plug that USB in, you'll have all of this content available. Each of this particular book is 10 units, and I'm going to click into one of the units, and here you can see basically the entire unit spread out before you in these 10 different spreads. I'm just going to click into this particular unit, which is titled Life in a Day. Okay, that's great, but you can, this is exactly the same page that the student would have in their Pathways Reading and Writing book. The nice thing about the classroom presentation tool are these features. So it's very difficult for, I think, anybody to see this just on its own. So let's say I wanted to zoom a region and focus on this one discussion question. So there are nice features in this classroom presentation tool where you can zoom in, like here, if you wanted to open up a discussion with the class, which of course, if you're having an online classroom, you want to treat it very much like you would treat your everyday classroom. That is a lot of collaboration, a lot of discussion, depending on what platform you're using. Having the chat open and live is great. Another great option for some platforms is the breakout rooms. I don't know if anybody's using Zoom. I know that's a pretty common platform right now for many colleges here in the U.S. But they've got breakout rooms where you could actually break out 3 or a group of 2 or 4 students and just have them discuss, and then you could reconvene as a class to have this discussion. The nice thing about the classroom presentation tool is that it really is meant to model exactly the book itself and really tap into some of those great features of the book, like as in here is the two-page spread of infographic. And so what you've got is a visual touchstone. So all the students are literally on the same page. You're able to manage your class just as you would. In fact, in some ways, it might even be better because everybody can really, they're really upfront and close to the content as well as to each other, albeit remotely. A couple of other features that are worth noting. So here's the grade spread. Anybody know what this is an image of? Zoom this so we can see. Pretty cool. The cities and communication lines from space. So it's telecom, shipping lanes, wires, telephone wires. It's pretty cool. So moving through this presentation, by the way, I'm not going to focus on any one particular book. Really what I'm looking at are the different sort of the features of things like the classroom presentation tool, Ebook, or myELT online. So here we are still with the classroom presentation tool. A couple things I want to point out. So this is exactly the same pages as the student pages, but you have a couple of additional activities. So you can start an activity simply by clicking on an icon. Again, this is taken right from the book, but it's something that you can do interactively. So if we were in a small group environment, I wanted you, the group of students, to engage in this activity. I would have you read the passage on page 5 and 6 and complete this activity. I, as a teacher, might give maybe 5 minutes. I'd set a timer, which you can do here, and set the timer to a time that is appropriate. Stopwatch. But you got a timer here. There we go. Started. The timer, so you can make sure that all the students are engaged in that activity with a set time, and then you might call on a couple of students to complete the task. So, for example, since I've got Sayaka on, I could ask Sayaka, you had a couple minutes to complete the reading. What is the answer for number 1?
Extraordinary.
Extraordinary. If I had Joy available, if she was available, I say, Joy, do you agree with Sayaka? Is this the correct answer? She would say yes, but unfortunately, the microphone isn't quite working. But of course, we could always simply check and check the answers like that. So, a very simple activity. As you can see, it's pretty straightforward. But as a teacher, there are a number of things that you can do with a simple task like that online by having students both work independently, but also coming back together as a group. And there are a number of types of activities. Here's a scanning activity. Again, you can have students do this independently. You could have one student perhaps reading the text and then each student answering the text and then calling on one or two students to respond appropriately to what they think the best right answer is. So these are some examples of activities. Let's say maybe not all of your students have the book, and so you really do need to zoom in. As we saw from the Zoom feature, you've got that feature, which is great. It's right there at your fingertips, so everybody can read the text. I love this reading. Actually, it's really interesting. It's about a movie, in fact, titled Life in a Day. And if you took 30 seconds or so to read the first paragraph, you'll see that it was based on 80,000 videos that were all uploaded into YouTube about a day. All true stuff. Here's another advantage that you could take advantage of while being online. Really is jumping platforms to going to Google. So let's say you wanted to look at is it life in a day? You've got that option. So you can go right to other external resources to basically to access content. And I think it's a small thing, but it's worth noting when you've got very rich source material to work from. But going back to the book, going back to the classroom presentation tool, so you've got all of those options, the activities. You've got, want to point out, you've got the audio. This is true for all of our books. This is a reading book, but it's as with all of our readings, they're recorded. With listenings, you'll have all of the lectures there available as well. So again, if you want that synchronous environment, if you had students practicing listening in class, you've got all of those resources readily available right here on the classroom presentation tool. Really, literally at your fingertips. So you can manipulate it, you can blow things up, you can play things, replay things, have students work on activities as a group, in pairs, or independently. It's a really it's a pretty much a phenomenal resource that with this you'll have just about everything that you'll need for that classroom environment. I think if there are a lot of activities, as you can see, but I'm thinking if there's any other features that are yes. So in addition, there are notes. Good. Again, this is content that's in addition to what's in the book itself. You can get all types of. So that's the classroom presentation tool. About, and as I had mentioned, it's a USB. So this is a physical thing. It's not something that we can send you remotely because frankly it's incredibly large. There's a lot of content on the classroom presentation tool, and so the only way that you can access that is by USB. So again, contact your local rep, and they'll send that out to you. And this is something that we provide to you, charge. It's something that we want to get in your hands as quickly as possible. Really, with this, you'll have a lot. You'll have an incredible amount of information. So, Sayaka, I want to pause here just to see if there were any questions that came up that were pretty common questions that I could answer.
The questions so far have been product specific. One thing I did see was one person wanted you to confirm how you accessed external resources outside of the CPT. Was it just a simple Googling that you did to access the video?
Yeah, that was it, actually. And I appreciate that question because I think that's one of the advantages that you have in this synchronous online environment that you don't necessarily have in the classroom. It was very quick for me just to go to that video, and all of a sudden I've got all of this additional content that I can play directly to my students. And the video that I went to, Life in a Day, it's actually really interesting. It was just a trailer, but it was very inspiring, good content, and just again one of those organized offshoots that you can make in your class. So yes, that was I just went from the classroom presentation tool directly to now regarding the other question, which books have classroom presentation tools? I'll get to that in just a moment, but just a few as a way to summarize what we just talked about, a few tips and suggestions with the classroom presentation tool. Definitely use images to promote the discussion. You can blow them up. You can focus on them. As I mentioned, zooming in to focus attention is an incredibly effective tool in this type of an environment. Take advantage of the search engine to expand the topic, just like I did to go to Google. Read passages aloud. It's a nice way to involve and engage students. I do that often in presentations. I'll have people come up and just read passages. And it's amazing the kind of dynamic shift that happens when you have others reading. It's great both for participation as well as as focus. And then, as we saw, the pop-out activity bank for more focused work. Again, you can do that either in pairs or in. So that's classroom presentation tool. Tool number one. I think everybody.
Sorry about that. So we have another question here. I think it's with regards to your point 5. Rob had a question. He's not quite sure how to bring up the correct answer. He wasn't aware of that. So would you be able to show that again on the CPT when you're filling in the blanks?
Sure, I'll do that. So go back to the classroom presentation tool. I just clicked on any activity. This is read the paragraph, guess which it's about. I'm guessing B, not having read the paragraph, but if I want to show the answers, show me the answers. So there's always an option. I think with others, it was an eyeball that we had that will show the answers type of activity. But there's always the option to have to show the answer. So you can see here just by clicking that little eye. Okay. Good question. And so the other question was, what products have classroom presentation tools? Here's a chart I'll refer to periodically throughout the presentation. And as you can see, all of these products, Pathways, Great Writing, Explore, Standout, English in Action, World English Keynote, they all have classroom presentation tools. So if you're using any one of these books, reach out to and you don't have a classroom presentation tool, reach out immediately to get one, because it will make a world of difference. Even if, of course, if you still have your face-to-face classes, it's designed for that. Okay. Give a moment just to absorb that, and then we'll move to the next question. Next question is there additional online practice I can access while teaching online? Now, I've referred to this a couple times, and the answer to that, of course, is yes. And that's the myELT. myELT is it's an online workbook, which is exactly what it is, plain and simple. And it was an online workbook built for students so that they can practice independently outside of class. That said, it can also be used for teacher-led engagement. And that's part of how we're talking about it today. Again, the myELT, we will provide you with an instructor code. If you don't already have one, we'll get it to you so you've got all of these resources, again, right at your fingertips. So this is an additional one, and I want to take a look at that. So again, I'm going to toggle out. I'm going to go to myELT. Yeah, it signed me out. Sign back in. You guys are going to have to give me just a moment. Scroll to book, and you'll get a glance at all of the different myELT programs we have. I wanted to take a look at Great Writing Level 2. So I opened up Great Writing Level 2. Again, the title of the book, in a way, it's not as important as the platform itself. What I want to show you is the online workbook. As I mentioned, this online workbook was designed for students to practice independently outside of class, to reinforce what they were doing inside of class. All of the material here is aligned to the material that's presented in the book. So if the students have the book, you're using the book in your classroom, this is a perfect supplement. Now, if you're using this as your main source, students have the book, but you wanted to do something a little more interactive in the class, this works pretty well. Before I move forward, Zach, I just want to check, is everybody able to see my screen?
I can see your screen, and we have a lot of yeses in the chat as well.
Perfect. Okay, good. I just wanted to do that quick check. So here we have the online workbook. Many of our workbooks are organized along this, which is a learning pathway. We also have a gradebook, which I'm not going to spend a lot of time focusing on today because I really want to focus on again, the content, the tools that you've got. But just know we have a gradebook. It's easy to use, and once you sign students in, you'll have all of their grades uh, filling into that gradebook. But frankly, I find the content the more interesting part, and I think this is something that we want to focus on. So this is the book, the writing book, as I had mentioned. As you can see, there's a lot of content, and this is true of all of our online workbooks. There's a lot of content. They all line up very nicely with the books. They're designed to give more focused, discrete practice. And why that's good in an online learning environment is because it really helps the students to focus. It helps you to focus, and you've got content that's right there. So this is one activity. What is a paragraph that I opened up? Like many of our materials, it's contextualized. And the activity here is students read a model paragraph. Again, you could, best practices, you can have a student read it aloud, you can have students read it silently, and then complete the activity. Like with the others, we've got great use of photos and images and a number of things that you can do with the images. Fully support the approach of using images to foster that type of collaboration in class, especially in this type of a class. But again, you can, depending on how you want to organize your class, run your class, call on students, have students work in groups and volunteer their answers if you don't like to call one student out, and then you have the opportunity, of course, to work on things that were correct or that were so going back to the pathway. It's again with all of our myELT. There's a nice variety of activities. So here's another grammar activity. And as I mentioned, everything that we try to do, we try to contextualize it. Where you see contextualization is really an opportunity for some type of communication or collaboration. So here is, again, I think the focus is simple present on general facts. Maybe you want to elicit the grammar point, and so you use this image. It's a simple map, but here it is, nicely contextualized. It's at your fingertips. It's not something you have to run around and try to find. It's right here, available in the context of an exercise. So I, as a teacher, what I might do, again, if I had a group of 10 or 15 or 20 students, I might start asking about this map. Maybe ask if anybody has been to a country in South America. What is the biggest country in South America? Any number of questions you can ask either about the content that's available here or just something that maybe you want to even personalize it more. Is anybody from South America? Which country are you from in South America? And you can elicit a lot of great language and participation from your students simply by looking at a map. And then you can turn to the activity. And here it's a little tricky because you would have to fill in the answer, but you could, again, call on students, or you could have students work on this activity, give them a couple of minutes to perform the task, and then go back and fill in the answers, one by one. Another nice resource in the myELT is, you'll see PDF block up, pop out. So you've got, again, immediate reference to things like, in this case, a grammar chart. So it makes it easy for you just to access information at exactly the moment that you need it. Never too much, always just enough, so that you keep your classroom moving, your students engaged, and you can answer questions as you go. So, a couple other activities. I love this. This is one of our newer ones. A great writing. It's got a lot of really good activities. This section, building better sentences. Again, why I like this exercise is that you really can have students look at this. You've got everybody focused. You've already talked about the grammar point or whatever instructional point you're making. Have students work on it and then come back to it as a group and process their answers or results. This particular activity is asking students to highlight the errors in the sentence. So that, of course, that's not the right answer. So okay. And it's kind of a engaging type of activity. So the online workbook I wanted to show you for a couple of reasons. First, because of the nice variety of exercise types that are made available. Also, the breadth of activities that are made available. Again, most of our online workbooks, actually all of them, line up one for the activities in the student book. So it's a lot of additional extra practice. Again, I think as a teacher, when you're looking at these materials, especially for those of us who are in that 40% range of never having taught an online course, it's nice to have everything right here available at your fingertips. And that includes things like images. That includes things like form-focused activities where it's not going to wander off too far, but that also includes things like a grammar reference chart, PDF, and also the answers. Things that you want to have right at your fingertips, especially in an online environment, because attentions are often quite full. So I wanted to point that out about the online workbook. Some of our online workbooks, if you go to this hamburger menu, will have actually 3 drop downs. It'll have the learning path, which is what we're looking at. It'll have the gradebook, which is what you, the teacher, will manage. It'll have the third thing, which is the ebook. Very few of our online workbooks have that, but with that, again, you'll have access to everything. Okay. So back to the PowerPoint. Saka, did I toggle well? Am I back on the PowerPoint screen?
I can see that, and I have 2 quick questions for you. I think you touched on this, but just to reiterate. So the first question is from Susan. She just wants to ask, can you assign work in myELT to students?
Great question, and the answer is yes, absolutely. And using the gradebook function, you can assign work, you can hide work, so students would only see what you'd want them to see. You can have a due date of when they have to turn it in by. So the answer is yes, absolutely, and that's in the gradebook function. I'm sorry I didn't go through it, but that was it's a whole nother.
Great. So then, yep, one more from Daniel.
Okay,
I guess you kind of touched on it, but so he just wants to confirm that there's a way to verify completed work.
Yes, there is, and that's also in the gradebook. You can see time on task, how much time a student has spent on a task, and then there's also completion of a task, whether it's 80%, 100%, 50%, so on. So, and I will say this, the online workbook, both from the teacher standpoint, where you're managing the class, and then also from the student standpoint, where they're engaged in the activity, incredibly user-friendly. As hopefully you saw from the platform, it's very intuitive what students need to do, not a lot of complex instruction lines, nice variety of tasks. So it's something that's both relevant but also engaging. And so, in summary, the myELT it will provide you, in addition to the classroom presentation tool, additional real-time practice. As you can see, you can use them either independently or individually, depending on how you'd like to set that up. It provides immediate feedback through those responses. It's multimodal. Now, we didn't look at the audio and video, but they exist. Any audio that's in a student book or any audio that's required to complete a task will be provided in the myELT. Some of them will have the videos that are in the books. There'll be additional video activities. they're graphic, as we saw, a lot of images. So again, resource for kind of inspiring that communication you want to foster in the class. And then finally, it feeds into the teacher gradebook, and I mentioned 5, not 4, but hopefully you all. Now, the one question that you're probably all having is, well, that's great for me as the teacher, but what about my students? And I've got great news for everybody. And this is after some discussion with our leadership, finance team, and they approved that we will provide myELT access codes to your students at no additional charge for a 4-month period. Now this is, I know we have kind of people from around the globe. This does apply exclusively right now for the U.S. and Canada. I can't speak for other regions, but I do want to make that clear. But it is, it's something that we wanted to do. We felt like it was a good and important thing to do given the circumstances right now of students. And they're being as disrupted as you, and we're being disrupted. And so we thought this is a nice tool, a nice resource for you to have to manage your class, but then also for the students to have, so that while they're outside of class, they can engage in these activities. So we'll provide the codes at no additional charge, at no charge actually. So again, contact your rep, and your rep will set you up with access to myELT.
Hey, Andrew, we have a lot of thank yous and greats in the chats, but one question, they just want to clarify that teachers do get free access as well, correct?
Yes, correct. Thank you for that, Sayaka. Yes, so for teachers, what we'll provide you is an instructor code, essentially instructor access code. And that will give you all the content, but it also gives you the gradebook. You open up your class and then invite all of the students into the class, and the students will have codes, or actually you'll have the students' codes because we'll provide them to you. Yeah, that's essentially how it works. Instructor code, student code, and we'll definitely. Okay, great. Thanks, Erica. That's good. I'm glad both those questions came up. So kind of moving along our frame of questions. Another question that I'm sure many of you have is, okay, that's great, but are there other no-cost resources that students can access online? And the answer is yes. So there's the myELT, which we'll provide, but then there's also the student companion sites. Student companion sites are wonderful resources for students. We do provide, in just about every case, the audio, in some cases the video, including the Standout series. If you are using that program, you've got the audio and the video, and then you also have, students will have access to additional worksheets, which are incredible. The author, Rob Jenkins, has written many, if not all, of the worksheets. He's prolific. He not only wrote the series, but he's written a lot of these supplemental worksheets to go alongside of the work that students are doing in their book. So these are our points of student access, again, at no cost. They're available to you. For the teacher companion URLs, and for the teachers, the access codes, if you need them, again, reach out to your rep, and they'll give you both. So just to recap, in terms of the products, what has what. Here you can see, again, the list of products with the classroom presentation tool, the myELT, which we talked about. And again, most of our more recent materials will have both classroom presentation tool and myELT. Many of them will have ebook, but frankly, you won't need the ebook if you've got the classroom presentation tool. The ebook is really just that. It's just a flat ebook. But if you want it, the ebook for you, then we can certainly furnish you with a code for the ebook. Regarding the teacher and student companion sites, actually, you can see which programs will have the audio, which will have the video, and which will have online worksheets. And I'd really like to kind of shine a light on the Standout series when it comes to the worksheets, because there are just so many. So if you are teaching in an adult ed environment, then you'll have a lot of resources on that site. Great. So there's one more thing I wanted to move on to, and then we'll wrap up, and that is learning management system. I know this is something, again, we fielded a lot of questions, not just recently, but throughout, about learning management systems. So Moodle, Blackboard, D2L, or Canvas. And the question is, of course, do you have anything to support my learning management system? And we have, right now, we have one product that we have created a shell for, and that's Pathways. And we created a shell for specifically for Canvas. And the reason why we chose Canvas was it seems to be the most common, at least here in North America, or one of the most common. We also had a teacher who had been using Canvas and using Pathways, and he actually developed shells, 10 core shells for us, 5 for listening and speaking, 5 for reading and writing. And as both an expert in Canvas as well as an expert in teaching, it really was a perfect opportunity for us to see, okay, let's create something that we can provide to teachers to make this transition into a learning management system, Canvas, easy. So just like with all of the resources that I've talked about today, this one is free. We will make it available to you. It is for anybody that's using Pathways. You really kind of set up. Actually, this is pretty nice. What we've developed was a course shell for each level of Pathways that's fully aligned to the book in terms of its structure. It also has a nice visual connection to the book. So if anybody has created a course with an LMS, any LMS, you know that it takes a lot to kind of design that course. So it looks good, it looks clean. There's a nice visual connection between the course that you've created and the materials you're using. So we've done that. We call it a light integration because it's not a fully, it's not a deep integration. We're not aligning myELT or deep systems. That would actually be quite a lot, big, huge undertaking. It's definitely something on a plan, but not for the immediate. So it's a light integration using existing companion site resources, which include the audio, video. In addition to that, there are a few textbook aligned activities that are new that you'll find in the Pathway shell. And the thing with Canvas is, and why we thought let's do it with Canvas, is Canvas itself is just a great platform. Now, I'm not promoting one platform over another because, frankly, I've never taught with Canvas or other platforms. I cut my teeth on a Blackboard, to be honest, not Blackboard, the LMS, but literally a Blackboard. So I can't speak to the merits of each one, but I think the more comfortable and familiar you are with them is probably the best one. But the thing that really stands out with Canvas, as Jacob, our colleague who developed the shells, that he often comments on, is the fact that it's just such a great communication tool, which again fits exactly with the emerging need right now, which is to have some type of a communication tool and a platform to have an effective, engaging, communicative, and student-centered experience online. So Canvas does provide that, and as a tool, it's great. We've just plugged in the content, but what you'll have access to is all of those great tools that are native to Canvas, including like in-class chat or out-of-class discussions. The other thing Canvas has is a Gradebook, very robust. Again, the nice thing about Canvas is that you could integrate your own content into it quite easily. That's by design. So what we're providing with this course shell is not just content if you wanted to use it, but also a nice starting point for you if you wanted to build it out. And then finally, what Canvas will have is they do have Zoom conference. And I haven't spent a lot of time on this call talking about different platforms because I'm not expert in any of those platforms. But I will say this. I've heard a lot of great things about Zoom educationally. They've recently, not only have they made it widely available to educators, but they've also expanded their 40-minute limit. That was one of the questions. Was, well, Zoom's great, but you can only meet for 40 minutes. They've expanded that specifically for educators to think it's actually, infinitum. I think you can go for 2 hours if you wanted to, but that definitely opened up. The other nice thing about Zoom is you can do the chat rooms that I was mentioning earlier. So if you wanted to have students break off into groups of 2 or groups of 3, you can definitely do that with Zoom. It's quite easy. I use Zoom a lot, for things exactly like this, and I can vouch for that program and say it is very good. But the nice thing here is that it's embedded into Canvas, and well worth exploring if you haven't already. Maybe using this as a good opportunity to check that out. So what we've provided for you in terms of developing pathways for Canvas is the following, and I'll say it's a straightforward, very straightforward 3-step process to get this shell. Again, I'll mention it's free. There's no additional cost. So the first thing is we prepared a how to download document, which we'll provide, and it gives you basic steps how to download a Canvas shell. The second thing is to download the actual Canvas shell itself, which is the part that we created for you. Joy will send a link momentarily in the chat box. That link will take you directly to this page here, where you'll see the how to document, the listening speaking file, and the reading writing file. In those files are all the course shells. And then the third thing is that you would open the Pathways course shell in Canvas. And that's pretty much it. I made it sound very easy, and to be honest, it is very easy. Once you do it the first couple of times, first time through, it might take about 5 to 7 minutes, but you'll see, great, that was actually quite straightforward. But what you get is something pretty impressive. You get, again, a very substantial course shell with a lot of content already pre-populated in that shell, so that you could basically begin your class right away. And I'm going to take you one last time out of the PowerPoint. We're going to go into a course shell just so you can see what it looks like. So here's the page, by the way, of the course shell that I was talking about. But now I am here in my Canvas dashboard. I've downloaded each one of these courses already by that 3-step process that I just took you through. And it's really as simple as this. Once you download the course, this is what you get. You get, again, I mentioned that visual connection between the book with the online course here. It's the way Jacob has designed it is that it's meant to be very clicky. You just kind of click through. You don't have to do a lot of reading. Again, ideal for language learners that are just want to confuse me with a lot of text. We've aligned, I should say, Jacob has aligned the table of contents, again, visually with each of the units in the book, Life in a Day. This is the one we looked at earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and click in. And here what you see is complete alignment to the units. Explore the theme, reading 1, the video, reading 2. And again, this is just kind of a skeletal a basis for you to kind of build your course up. But I click into one of the units. There I see that familiar image that we started with of that planet. So you can see what students are getting. They get the visual. They get a really kind of straightforward click path. And then here, this is a discussion activity. So maybe out of class, you want students to look at this image and comment on it, discuss it, share their thoughts about it. I mentioned Canvas is a nice communication tool. Well, this is it. They just click on their discussion. So you can simply type, I am impressed with how many cities. And I post my reply, and by posting, all students will now see my name with my response. So that's a discussion feature, which is nice. It's something you can do either in class or out of class, but I think it's out of class so that students are thinking and writing and posting. Asynchronous learning environment that I was. So that was a glimpse. I wanted to give you a glimpse at some of the tools that we have available to you right now. We want them in your hands. We know this is a very difficult time for everybody, yourselves and your students. You're making adjustments on the fly. Clearly, a number of you have indicated this is completely new to you, brand new to you. And so we want to help in the way we can. So we want to provide you with these resources. Everything I showed you today is no additional cost. Everything today is something that we want to provide to you. For those of you in the US and Canada, we can speak directly, provide to you. So please contact your rep for things like myELT codes. If you want ebook codes, you can reach out for that. But frankly, if you've got the classroom presentation tool, you really do have the keys to the kingdom. You'll have everything. The other thing is please check out our upcoming webinars. I didn't spend a lot of time today talking pedagogy. I'm not a teacher. I was trained as a teacher, albeit I don't know if Lisa Kraft is on the call, but I taught with Lisa 25 years ago in Turkey. But I didn't spend a lot of time today talking about pedagogy because, frankly, I think there's a lot of experience amongst you. And then there's also, we've got experts really speaking to those aspects, the more qualitative aspects of delivering an effective course online. So please check out those webinars. Very, very good. And then do reach out for other special circumstances. You know, everything's just a little bit different for everybody. So, like I said, we're here to help. We definitely want to support you, and I hope this was gave you some ideas. Hopefully, it gave you some resources that you felt maybe you didn't have before. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. We will take questions, but before we do, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't wish Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. Being one of the few Irishmen on staff, I feel like it was my duty actually to say that. But thank you again, and Saka, I'll take questions. I think now's a good time for questions if there's anything. So we have a few minutes left.
I'm looking right now.
Go ahead and do that.
Just lots of thank yous at the moment. Just a reminder for everybody, we are following up with an email with a recording of this webinar and all the URLs that Andrew mentioned as well. So looks great. So I think if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us or your reps. I'm going to give it a minute just to wait. I see a few people typing. Andrew, I do see a question from Michelle asking about the classroom presentation tool compatibility with Chrome.
Yeah, it works fine. I use Chrome as my browser, and it works ideally actually. And I saw another question around exams. The classroom presentation tool doesn't have exams. We do have exams on our teacher companion site. On the website, you can download exams. However, delivering exams online is ExamView is not one of our. It's not our product. It's not our software, and it's my understanding is that it's a little cumbersome. The myELT, we do have tests though that you could use on myELT to submit to kind of assess that way. Oh, Chromebook. Yes, correct. Chromebook, it wouldn't. The classroom presentation tool doesn't work on Chromebook. Yeah, because the Chromebook is just It's just the online. So Chromebook, it will not work. That's definitely a challenge. Uh, these tools be used with subject content textbooks such as marketing. Again, these tools were designed to complement our existing course books. So kind of expanding them to align with other subject area materials. I think somewhere there might be a tangential connection, but definitely wouldn't be direct. Yeah, like going back to that Chromebook question. It's now I'm familiar with Chromebook, and because it's online, actually is why exactly why it won't work, because it's a USB. So yeah, I'm sorry that it doesn't. We've had that discussion, but it's just the way the Chromebook is designed. It's not compatible to classroom presentation. But students can watch it. Yes, if students are on Zoom online, and you, the teacher, are using your classroom presentation tool from a PC, they can absolutely see it. That's absolutely true. You just can't play a classroom presentation tool off of a Chromebook itself. Yeah, glad we
Hi everyone.
that
So I
one out.
think we're gonna wrap up here. So we'll
Yeah,
follow up
job,
with
Jay.
an email in the next day or so. So keep an eye out for that. So thanks again for joining everyone. And thank you, Andrew, for presenting and Joy for managing the chat as well.